Communism doesn't die, it mutates. It finds the weakest points in a civilization, the guilt, the envy, the boredom of people who have everything and yet still somehow feel empty, and it moves in. It has done this for over a century. And the people who think it can't happen here are the exact reason it always does. Let me be very clear about something before we go any further. This is not regular left-wing politics getting a little feisty. This is a civilizational ending virus. Communism and socialism have never worked. Not once, not anywhere, not under any name, any flag, or any branding. They destroy everything they touch. We are in a true political battle, and too many people, even on our side, still haven't fully accepted that. It's wishful thinking to believe that because we re-elected the 45th, 46th, and 47th President of the United States, this is resolved. It's not. In fact, far from it. Trump was remarkable in what he pulled off. He was able to rally the GOP across enormous geographic and ideological distances. People who live far apart and disagree on plenty of things came together under one banner. But Trump was a reprieve, a force around which power could rally. He was not the end of this fight. He was a pause button. And while we were busy celebrating, they were working. They've been working for a very long time. Former KGB agent Yuri Bezmenov tried to explain how this works decades ago. He said ideological subversion isn't about winning arguments. It's about changing people's perception of reality so completely that even when they're drowning in all this information, they can no longer come to sensible conclusions in defense of their own country, their families, or their civilization. He laid out 4 stages: demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization. And he was very specific about what happens to the activists and professors and civil rights defenders who help tear everything down once the real Marxists actually take power.
Your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists.
Did you catch that? Lined up against the wall and shot. That's what happens to the useful idiots when their job is done. They don't get a seat at the table. They get dealt with. But here's the thing. We're not at the end of the movie yet. We're still somewhat in the early chapters. And right now, these useful idiots are very much still useful. Now, let's talk about who these people actually are, because there has been a very deliberate cognitive war waged to make us picture this movement as diverse, working class, a coalition of the oppressed. That's the branding, but we all know that's not the reality. I was in Nashville not too long ago, and I stumbled into what turned out to be a Democratic Socialists of America meeting at a bar. They were almost entirely white. Most of them were older. It was quite laughable. One guy had his pants pulled all the way up above his belly button, shirt tucked in, holding what I can only assume was his wife's purse. I mean, my goodness. And these are the people that are supposed to overthrow capitalism. But don't be fooled, they're still dangerous. Because here's the thing, this is funny because it's sad. Because these people, ridiculous as they look, have a mayor in New York City. They've taken over not just neighborhoods, but entire districts. And they did it while we were focused on the big national picture, which matters. But anyway, so who is the base actually? The engine of the DSA is downwardly mobile, college-educated white people who are furious that the system didn't reward them fast enough. They got the degree, they got the debt, they looked around at their lives and decided the problem was capitalism rather than anything they could control. So they found a political home for all that self-loathing. At its core, that's what this movement is built on. It's built on three things: third world politics, white guilt, and raw envy. That's it. That's the whole machine. But envy is an extraordinarily powerful political tool because it's simple, it's emotional, and it bypasses reason completely. Tax the rich, eat the rich are bad. That's a slogan and that travels. Meanwhile, our guys are up there trying to contextualize and explain and provide historical framework, and the audience checks out by minute 3. The DSA, on the other hand, they dumb it down because their ideas are already dumb, but it works because envy works. It always has. These people live better than 99% of humanity that has ever walked this earth, and yet somehow, they are the oppressed ones. That is what they've convinced an entire generation of comfortable, educated, mostly white Americans to believe. And that is the result of a very long, very deliberate process of ideological subversion. The DSA has about 1,000 members nationwide. Every single one of them pays monthly dues. They canvass a couple times a week, knock on doors, meet some friends, grab a drink after. It's like a social club that wants to also destroy Western civilization. How fun. But they are absolutely lethal in low turnout primaries, which is exactly where they focus, because they figured out something most people on our side still haven't. You don't need to win the whole country if you can own the meeting nobody else bothered to show up to. Last week was the proof. Zoran Mamdani endorsed 5 candidates in New York. All 5 won. And one of them, Darya Liza Chevalier, is considered by the DSA to be one of their most moderate members. The moderate. This is the same woman who co-founded a group at Columbia that called for the total eradication of Western civilization. And let's not kid ourselves about what this actually is, because this isn't a story about socialism alone. Socialism is the vehicle. It's what makes it digestible for the guilty white college kids with the student debt. But underneath it, this is a jihad, using socialism as a conduit with useful fools as the delivery system. They tell us the biggest threat to America is white supremacy. Meanwhile, they're out here systematically targeting normal white American families and communities through Hollywood, DEI culture, and college admissions, not because those families are a threat to anyone, because they're not, but because historically, strong-rooted communities are the hardest thing you can radicalize. You can't sell envy and guilt to people who are grounded in something, who are happy, who have to go to work. So first, you have to uproot them. That's what this has always been about. Trump said it very plainly, and he was right.
These are not social democrats. These are hardcore, godless communists. They're godless communists. All communists are godless. They don't believe in God. This is the most serious threat to our country since its existence, in my opinion, 250 years ago. This is a major threat to our country.
Godless communists, not social democrats, not progressive activists with some spicy takes, communists. The most serious threat to this country in 250 years. And President McKinley found that out the hard way. Lee Harvey Oswald, whether you buy the official story or not, and at this point, if you do, it's okay, you'll get there. But anyway, Oswald was a committed communist who moved to the Soviet Union because he hated America that much. Or the Weather Underground in the 1970s. Self-declared communist revolutionaries who emerged from, surprise, surprise, campus-based opposition to the Vietnam War, as well as from the civil rights movement, another shocker, who openly declared war on the United States, bombed the Capitol, and set off explosives in government buildings because they wanted to overthrow the system. Bet you didn't learn about them in your high school history class. And there's a reason for that. But the point is, the ideological violence isn't new. And whatever normal, moderate Democrats are still out there, and are y'all out there, they're too scared to name it. They'd rather watch it swallow their party whole than risk being called names by people who already hate them. And that's what makes this so hilarious. They already hate these people. But that's where we must step in. We have to present ourselves as what we actually are. The most organized, most informed, most clear-eyed opposition to this, not just in New York City, but in the whole country. Not because it's a fun thing to say, but because it's true and because someone has to do it. And we have to do it. Power is built locally. The DSA figured that out, and we need to be just as serious about it. They show up to the meetings nobody else wants to attend. They run candidates in the primaries nobody else is paying attention to. They take the school board, the city council seat, the low turnout primary, one at a time, consistently, for years. And this is how you lose a civilization. Not with one dramatic moment, but with 1,000 quiet meetings where the wrong people showed up and the right people didn't. We are not going to outpost this problem. We are not just going to wish it away. This is a civilizational battle. It has always been a civilizational battle. Communism is entropy. It always comes back, and we must always eliminate it. The question isn't whether this threat is real. I mean, we just watched them sweep New York. The question is whether we're going to treat it with the seriousness it deserves, or keep celebrating national wins while they take everything underneath us. One school board, one city council seat, one low turnout primary at a time. We see it, we know what it is, and we're not going anywhere. And that's the reality check with Iulia.